Lecture 5, The Muslim Community, Faith and Politics. So one thing I will say is that this chapter, though titled Faith and Politics, is really, the takeaway for me was primarily historical. There's a lot of deep and detailed history in this lecture that I will not attempt to replicate, because it's not something that I would ever be able to remember, no matter how many times I might say it out loud. So I'm just going to hit the high points, really, in this case. So the Muslim faith is divided into two groups: the Sunni, which are 85%, and the Shia, which are 15%. The key disagreement between these two groups, which is enough to cause quite a bit of conflict, is basically in the selection of a leader. The Sunni believe that basically the most competent person should lead, and his power should be primarily political. Whereas the Shia believe that it should be a hereditary title, and that the closest relatives to the Prophet Muhammad should have been elevated to leader, and then it should have been the leadership should have been coalesced into one person for both political and for religious purposes. This, unfortunately, early in Muslim history, the Shia and their representative was martyred, and therefore there's quite a bit of consternation and sort of a feeling of disenfranchisement that persists, as you would understand. If you are of a vastly differing opinion and you didn't even have a chance, then I would see why that would be an issue. So for the first few hundred years of its existence, Islam expanded quite quickly by a measure of somewhat civilized assimilation, based on the lecturer's description. That at its peak, the Muslim nation, if you will, stretched all the way from Spain to North Africa, all the way to Pakistan. So it was quite a swath of the planet. Their method of assimilation was fairly straightforward. If you were among the assimilated, that you weren't massacred, your institutions weren't destroyed. It was basically put to you that you have one of three choices. You can convert to Islam if you wish, and live under Islamic law with all of its controls, and or you could pay a tax to remain under the protection of the country, or you could just die. So pretty straightforward. Apparently, a lot of communities did convert, because as I've said in previous lectures, it makes a lot of sense. It's a very, very communal thing, and especially given the choices, it's not surprising. So, as I said, the empire stretched quite a distance. The golden age of Islam was considered to be through the 8th century to the 13th, and it actually saw quite a revival of art and architecture and science, as the caliphate sort of tried to assimilate, also from a knowledge perspective, all the previous knowledge of the West. That they acquired a lot of documents from the Greeks, translated them into Arabic, and in fact, it is only through the Arabic translations that we know some of the Greek history that we do. So it's a good thing they did assimilate that; otherwise, it would have been lost entirely. The next bit that he goes into at some length, at least that stuck with me, was the Crusades. The Crusades stretched from 1095 to 1453. And it was essentially just a political move by the papacy, that they were, of course, feeling threatened by these much more successful southern neighbors, who were quite easily marching through and taking over territory. And as the lecturer describes, things had gotten kind of quiet, and the Christian faith had just kind of stagnated for quite a while. There wasn't anything really inspiring going on, and so the Crusades was sort of the wake up call to here, let's go fight for this. So by 1099, the Crusaders have captured Jerusalem, and basically, as it's described by some writers, it was nasty even by medieval standards. The lecturer says that Basically, they went in and just slaughtered everybody, who even the Jews who were fighting alongside the Muslims, which is somewhat telling. The Jews and Muslims fighting against the Christians, and everybody just got put to the sword. So it was pretty unpleasant. When the city was finally recaptured in 1187 by the Muslim armies, it was actually a much more gentle assimilation. If you read some of the accounts, it's everyone is essentially just allowed to march out after giving up the possessions, and you go on your way. And the Crusades continued along until 1453 with the fall of Constantinople, now Istanbul. So, at any rate, that's a pretty brief summary because, as I said, this lecture was very weighted down with a lot of historical details that did not lend themselves to the large-scale structural summing up. So that's what I got. If you want to know more, you should go and watch the course for yourself and get all those nice, happy historical details. But at any rate, until next time.